Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is undoubtedly and unabashedly a product of crunch. A buggy, gross-looking, unfinished mess, which is simultaneously offensive to see released from the highest-grossing media franchise of all time, and entirely expected, as the series' current success no doubt hinges on a steady stream of half-assed content that will sell exceptionally well irregardless of its quality, paving the way for even more wealth in the merchandise market. But Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is also a super fun game. Definitely the best entry since the start of the 3DS era, and maybe even the best overall. While games like Pokemon Legends Arceus stray somewhat from the main series format, allowing them to rise to greater heights through experimentation, seeing a new generational game that adheres to the tired format we've seen for decades actually be inspiring again was not something I expected. One thing main series Pokemon games are generally known for though, especially in current era, is their difficulty, or lack thereof. Arbitrary fan rules that increase the game's difficulty are something of a band-aid here, so we're Nuzlocking. The rules? If a Pokemon faints, it dies. That's the baseline, of course, but the other famous Nuzlocke rule is a bit hard to follow. Without super well-defined areas or a way to make encounters effectively random, I decided that Twitch chat would choose my Pokemon via polls instead. Additionally, I won't be using items in any trainer fights or boss battles, and will be playing on set mode, which they removed from the game for no reason, but I guess that means we're just mashing the B button every time we KO something. Oh, and one last eensy-teensy rule, suggested by a friend of mine. Pokemon will decide themselves whether they want to learn a new move and what they'll replace it with. Apparently these games have added the functionality of letting you ask your Pokemon for advice each time they learn a move. A functionality I wish I never knew about, but here we are. Certainly this will be fine. With the rules in place, we set out to pick our starter. This generation didn't particularly excite me with any of the final designs, so we go with Sprigatito, mainly because I didn't know anyone else choosing it and I wanted to finish the decks. After naming it Cushcat to match our character's pretty obvious interests, we're challenged by our self-proclaimed rival Nemona, who has what I'm sure is a very normal and healthy relationship with Pokemon battling. Nemona chooses the starter weak to ours, making the fight a cakewalk, of course. One point to note is that this generation's starters are actually all incredibly good, which will potentially make Nemona's ace a struggle moving forward. But as long as we have our own powerful starter to counter hers, we should be fine. Progressing through Poco Path, Chet decides to burden me with the new Pokemon Tarantula, who we name PU Threat. Given how bad this thing's evolution is though, even that nickname is generous. With the party having the exact same number of useful Pokemon as before, we run into a mysterious robotic Pokemon stranded on a beach. Seems like it wants some food. I figure a cell phone would be appropriate given that it's a robot, but it opts for my bagged lunch instead. The sandwich is apparently filled with anime powers that transform you into a rocket-powered genitalia, and our only course of action is to follow this eggplant emoji-looking lizard back to safety through a cave. The local Houndour population ironically turns out to be a bunch of Gen 1ers and don't take kindly to this new Pokemon, and it seems like our poor weed cat is about to be blazed by a level 40 Houndour. Luckily, this is a scripted encounter that doesn't actually lead to a KO, and the technical testicles save our ass. After Chat bestows us with Lechalamanca the Lechonk, we meet up with yet another colorful annoying character who will definitely never grow on me, who yells at the Gonad Gecko and challenges us to a battle. After a swift victory, this Arven dude tells us the phallic fellow's name is Miraidon and dumps its Pokeball onto us. After frankly way too much dicking around in the first area, which was weirdly satisfying, almost as if this is actually a really fun game bogged down by unacceptable technical issues, we are joined by Yeast Beast the Fido and Grouper the Paldean Wooper. For the uninitiated, this Wooper is actually a really strong party member for Nuzlocks. You see, this Pokemon gets the ability Water Absorb, which makes it heal from water-type moves. The AI will basically always go for a super effective move when it can, so by stacking several Pokemon with type immunities in your party, like Wooper here, outplaying the AI with hard switches will basically always work. Which is unfortunate for us because Grouper actually has its other, far less useful ability, Poison Point. Oh well. At the very least, Grouper still has a natural immunity to electric-type moves, which lets us completely wall Nemona heading into Mesagoza. By using the new Terastal mechanic, Pokemon can change their typing and either gain a new Stab, short for same type attack bonus, in addition to their existing ones, or boost an existing Stab from 150% damage to 200%. Nemona's Palmy here goes for an Electric Terastal, boosting the power of its electric-type moves by a dangerous amount. But the only move it knows here is Thundershock, which means that Grouper literally cannot take damage here. We beat her with no trouble and head into Mesagoza. After encountering our third definitely not crucial character on our way to the school, we finally get to try out Terastalization using Scarlet and Violet's new evil team, some school delinquents named Team Star. We terrestrialize PU Threat to give it a much needed boost to bug-type attacks and easily wipe the floor with them, which is kinda sad because their battle theme is a certified banger. Seriously, so much of the music in this game is top notch and it makes me wish some of these story fights were longer. Either way, we head up to our class, which is apparently full of robots. Like, holy shit, this is a cutscene. Could you really not do better than 5 frames per second? I am crying over here, and spend a painful amount of time getting roped into 3 storylines for the game. Victory Road, where Nimona will bother us about beating gyms and becoming the champion. Path of Legends, where Arvin coerces us into beating a bunch of giant Pokemon for him because he's a little bitch who just wants to make sandwiches. And Starfall Street, where Hackerman Cassiopeia kinda just shows up and tells us to beat the shit out of Team Star on occasion. In a huge missed opportunity, the game's challenges don't scale whatsoever, which means for the purposes of this run, we're gonna have to mostly go in a predetermined order to avoid the game being too easy or literally impossible, but we start by heading east in the direction of Arvin's first Titan Pokemon. As we explore the crags on our way over to the Stony Cliff Titan, Chad decides to bless me with Buck the Knackley and Xenoheart the Charcadet. Unfortunately, Xenoheart puts up a bit too much of a fight, and with Fire Spin preventing Lechalamanca from switching out, the catch is not without some steamed hams. While the first death of the run is unfortunate, I am extremely excited to have both Knackley and Charcadet on the team. Remember that last rule though, the one about Pokemon choosing their own moves? Up until now it's been pretty benign. Sure, my team might occasionally make a subpar decision, but the game is easy enough that it hasn't been a huge issue. Q Buck wanting to learn Headbutt. A great move, for sure. Unfortunately, of my 2 almost identical rock-type moves, a worthless speed boost and single coverage move, Buck decides that having type coverage is for chumps and that I totally need both Rock Throw and Smackdown, replacing my ground coverage with Headbutt. Again, this is maybe not the biggest deal right now, but I am starting to get worried. And on that note, we take on the boss of this area. No, not Titan Cloth, but Severino the office worker. This dude is an absolute menace. Severino immediately leads with a stockpiling Jigglypuff that does way too much damage, so we go for the Terragrass Cushcat to break through. By the way, why does Sprigatito get Seed Bomb of all things at level 17? That's kind of insane. Even with a Terra boosted Seed Bomb, Jigglypuff manages to tough it out and get significant damage on Cushcat, at which point I realize this guy's got a second Pokemon and roughly half the team is in KO range. Cushcat is pretty fast, so hopefully the next thing will be weak to grass and we can just take it. Nope, it's a Skiddo. A leftovers Skiddo. Of all the gym leaders, Elite Four members, Team Star bosses, or story-relevant fights in the game, not a single one of them, besides the final fucking boss, uses a single held item. But not Severino. No, he's got the Skiddo stall on lock. We bring in Fido to get some priority attack drops with Baby Doll Eyes, but this thing is packing both Razor Leaf, which has a high chance to crit and therefore ignores attack drops, as well as Growth, which lets it power back up. All while healing every turn. Praying for the Paralyze, we go for Lick 4 times in a row, but a 30% chance is apparently not high enough and we lose Yeast Beast. At this point, the lefties have effectively doubled Skiddo's HP, so we need a way to neutralize that. Xenoheart has Fire Spin, which would do the job. If it could hit. 3 Fire Spins in a row miss, Skiddo is now back up to 80%, and Xenoheart's defense is so low that we can't risk taking another hit. PU Threat dies to yet another round of bad luck, but this lets us bring Xenoheart back in to finally land a Fire Spin, negating lefties. After a bit more back and forth, Xenoheart is in kill range from Tackle, so we predict the hit into Buck, who, between a normal resist and a high defense stat, is able to tank just long enough to get a headbutt in. The Skiddo barely lives, and of course, with Fire Spin down again, it is only a matter of time before it undoes all of our hard work. With all 4 of our remaining Pokemon on the ropes, and only Sprigatito able to outspeed, we need to sack something for any hope of winning. Xenoheart disappoints me for one last time, as his death lets us bring Cushcat back into battle cleanly. While I'd love to use a Terra Stab boosted Seed Bomb here, Skiddo's Sap Sipper means that it will just heal off it instead. At this point, the Skiddo has healed up enough that a bite isn't a guaranteed kill, but for once, things go our way and the evil is defeated. Half the team down from a single lefty Skiddo. Things have certainly looked better. Through this terrifying ordeal, Cushcat evolves into Florigato. While I do wish the cat stayed on 4 legs, at this point, I will take any boost I can. As we begin to make up for our losses, Chat goes for the salty runback, introducing Hinazort, the other Charcadet, to the team. This one is confirmed to not be blind, but dies within minutes while trying to catch a Shroomish. I'm starting to think Charcadet isn't very good before it evolves. We are just hemorrhaging Pokemon at this point, but hopefully things can start turning around now that we've got Tonkatrunk the Tinkatink. and turn around they do, as the giant Cloth turns out to be a giant pushover for Cushcat, and Miraidon gets the ability to run fast thanks to the power of Subway and our resident sandwich artist, Arvin. With the first of 18 major challenges down and Clawful Evil the Cloth joining the party, we set our sights for the Bug Gym. Much like Xenohort though, my sights are not reliable whatsoever, and I end up going on a long open world adventure, evolving Grouper into Clodsire, catching Evangelion the Nimble, and wandering into a level 40 area. Oops. Pokédoll save our ass, and not for the last time. Finally, we make our way to the Cortondo Gym, roll a giant olive into a basket in the jankiest way possible, and absolutely decimate Katie with our wealth of overleveled rock types. You can get mad at me for being way too high level for this fight, but I'm just mad at the devs for not scaling levels when the game is open world, and I end up going on random hour-long detours instead, so get used to it. As we move onward to the Open Sky Titan, the moveset rule keeps being a thorn in my side as Tonka Truck passes on Sweet Kiss and Cushcat deletes Bite, which would have been Stab after evolving. But Buck evolves into Minecraft Frog, Knackle Stack, so that's good. After janking my dragon bike on a riverbed and backwards long jumping over a cliffside, I managed to sequence break over to the Elite Four. I accidentally throw myself into the interview, but finally my penchant for screwing up interviews comes in clutch, and we don't get admission to the fights. Or so I thought. Turns out you can just walk here from the school and the interview is rigged if you don't have all the gym badges. But it was funny in the moment, alright? Buck is covering our rock needs pretty well, so Clawful Evil takes a box break while Watson the Watchel joins the party, Tonka Truck evolves into Tinkatuff, and Grouper decides to forget Yawn, one of the team's most cornerstone moves for Poison Jab. You know, instead of forgetting Poison Tail. Class act, Grouper, really. We finally make it up to the Titan Bombardier in 0.5 A presses and give Watson a shot, but after a near one-hit KO, we let Buck do what Buck does best and rock the Hawk. Watson doesn't make it out of the fight entirely unscathed though, as it decides to trade its only flying stab for Roost. A useful move to be sure, but we are now down flying presence offensively. But with the Open Sky Titan's Quiznos order safely in Miraidon's stomach, we gain the ability to swim. Just make sure you don't get in the water within 30 minutes of eating it or the game crashes. While that was just a referential quip about a random and incorrect health tip, given how this game runs, I'd actually not be surprised if it did crash. We also meet Arvin's dead dog, but I'm sure that storyline won't involve in anything important or emotional, so let's just skip that. As we make our move towards the Dark Team Starbase, Definitely Not Penny calls us and we get introduced to the most enigmatic character in the game, Clive. His origins might be a complete mystery, but one thing is for sure. He's got some beef with Team Star 2, so he's also gonna sit back and watch us do all the work. We evolve Evangelion into Low Kicks and absolutely decimate Giacomo's Sugma squad with her and Tonka Truck. Apparently the fashion show rejects of Team Star also have a sob story, but the only thing I'm crying about is their sense of style. Next on the hit list is Artisan Gym, where Nimona insists she's definitely not stalking us, which is a really weird thing for a stalker to say. The game intentionally destroys its own framerate by forcing a bunch of Sunflora to follow us around the city, and then we decimate Brassius' grass types with Evangelion. His ace happens to be a Sudowoodo, which would actually threaten Evangelion with Rock Throw, but it opts for Trailblaze and nets us our second badge. On our way over to the Schrader Squad base, Cushcat decides that priority is for Chumps and takes Worry Seed over Quick Attack, just in case we end up in a double battle with Slaking. Buck drops Salt Cure, Grouper skips Sludge Wave, Tonka Truck decides to become a special attacker, and Evangelion drops Fighting Coverage for Feint. Keeping Astonish is clearly the superior play, and this rule is making me lose my goddamn mind. Luckily, the insane amount of dicking around has made me overlevel the Fire Team Starbase to the point where bad movesets don't matter that much. We wipe the floor with Mela, who really shouldn't be standing on top of a moving vehicle when she can hardly walk in those boots, ignore backstory I'm supposed to care about, and beeline it to Lavincia City. After blazing through both Iono's Electric-type gym and Titan Orthworm without any issues, I start doing something very dangerous in Nuzlocke. I get complacent and sloppy. After letting Evangelion stand against a Torkoal and die to a Lava Plume, we downward spiral into the Glimwood Tangle and take on the Team Star Navi Squad. Up until now, our suboptimal sets weren't an issue due to level advantage, but as I rush into the Atticus fight without much prep, it becomes pretty clear how much I have screwed up. Since the Navi Squad uses poison types, Grouper is the obvious choice for this fight. However, even just beating the Skuntank that Atticus leads with, Grouper is in no shape to keep going. Without any healing, our biggest threat to poison types becomes relegated to a sack. And unlike both of the previous star fights, Atticus apparently has more than 2 Pokemon. He's got 4. Nothing else on my team can hit poisons particularly well. Between Sludge, Ironhead, and Bulldoze, Atticus' Revavroom has absolutely no problem KOing Pokemon after Pokemon. Grouper might have stood a chance, but not after the significant damage it took while fighting Skuntank. And so one after another, Watson, Tonka Truck, Grouper, Cushcat, and Buck all perished due to my carelessness. Now normally, that would be the end of the Nuzlocke, but that wouldn't make for very exciting content, would it? We've built up a fair number of spare Pokemon during our Deathless adventures, and a new team is born, rising from the ashes of my previous failures. Clawful Evil makes their return, alongside Dolphman the Finizen, Vinx the Varoom, Athena the Armarouge, Roland Stone the Bramblegast, and Chicanery the Cyclizar. Shaking our fist in anger as we promise vengeance against the Navi Squad, we head towards the Water-type gym in Cascarafa. Unfortunately, our movesets haven't improved, but I won't make the mistake of being ill-prepared again. Fast forward several hours of grinding, I unsurprisingly find myself unprepared for Kofu's gym. Finizen goes down to a very unfortunate flail during the gym test, but it's fine. We've got Wigton the Wiglet as a replacement, and Roland Stone has a great type matchup into water types. Chicanery is able to reduce Lead Veluza's attack significantly before pivoting into Rolling Stone, who has no problems finishing it off and sweeping through Wugtrio. Enter Crabominable, Kofu's ace. As an ice type, it actually threatens Bramblegast here. We know it's going to Terra Water, which should allow Roland Stone to kill it as long as we hit 3 times with Bullet Seed. But I'm not leaving things up to chance like that. The chance of Kofu using a fighting type move is non-existent, since he sees the immunity on Bramblegast. Going for water offensively also makes little sense due to my resist. The AI should only see one play here, and that is going for the Stab Ice move. We predict, and terrestrialize Roland Stone into a rock type, losing our ice weakness. We only hit twice with Bullet Seed, which is par for the course at this point, but it doesn't matter because it goes for Crab Hammer, a move the AI knows we should resist, but obviously don't anymore because of Terra Rock. I'm at a loss. Why would the AI do that when it sees a super effective hit? Chicanery manages to barely clean up the fight while I check on Kofu's team. As it turns out, the Crabominable never even had an Ice-type move, despite being an Ice type that learns an Ice-type move on evolution, which would be extremely useful for dealing with the Grass types in a Water Gym. So of course, the only person I outplayed was myself. Well, that settles that. I had been trying to go into these important battles blind, but we're done with that. I'm so far on the back foot right now that I need some wins, and I can't properly prep if the bosses aren't even going to have stab moves. Chat throws me a bone with Neon Genesis, another chance to make low kicks work, and we start preparing to take Atticus down appropriately this time. Some psychic moves would be really useful to have here, but Athena decides to forget Psyshock to learn Nightshade. After being offered useful move after useful move, she continues to hold on to Ember and Astonish like her life depends on it, and I'm starting to run out of options. Armarouge doesn't learn its next Psychic Stab, Expanding Force, until level 56. Out of desperation, I finagle the rules a bit. If the Pokemon chooses to learn a TM, it still counts. So we gather up the resources to make a Psybeam TM, and she doesn't want to learn it. Not over 3 fire moves or fucking Astonish. My options to beat Atticus are rapidly dwindling. Alright, quick recap. I have a pretty severe lack of ways to hit Atticus's Pokemon, thanks to the moveset rule, but the offensive combination of Neon Genesis and Chicanery, Vinx's poison immunity, and Athena's physical bulk will hopefully tide me over. We lead with Vinx, ensuring Skuntank can't cripple my offensive powerhouses with poison, and trade hits until Skuntank is low. Vinx can't take any more hits, but that's fine. All I need her for now is to switch in on poison moves. Chicanery comes in, finishing it off and taking a sizable chunk out of Muck before pivoting to Clawful Evil, who takes Sludge Wave like a champ. We manage to down the Muck, but Clawful gets taken below half by poison damage, which means Anger Shell doesn't activate. Unfortunately, we have no safe switch-ins to Revavroom, and without the Anger Shell proc, we can't drop its speed before it kills us. Clawful tearfully gets sacked, and Neon Genesis comes in to start dropping its attack stat with Lunge. Now at -3 attack, Cranky Kong should be able to safely switch in and finish it off. Now while I would love to use Athena to take care of the Starmobile, the weather randomly changed to rain halfway through the battle, cutting the power of Fire-type moves. I respond the only way I can think of. Wait out the weather condition in real time for a chance at a fair fight. Athena immediately gets poisoned on the switch thanks to Noxious Torque, putting me on a timer. Vinx helps us avoid damage on the switch, but the Starmobile then takes the opportunity to Flame Charge for a speed boost, putting us squarely back into white mode. Without any way to outspeed the now +1 car, Chicanery, Cranky, Neon Genesis, and Athena all perish without any recourse. Alright, Atticus, I'm on the fucking warpath. You wanna go. You wanna ruin my run twice over. We are done. Kebabstore the Titan joins the team, and I feed him every last goddamn EXP candy I have, and waste all my money on TMs and a choice scarf to take this bastard down. Oh, but Technovoid, that's against the moveset rule. Fuck the moveset rule. I've been consistently screwed by my team's inability to maintain any good coverage or even run their own stabs half the time. Nuzlocks are fun because they're hard, but the inability to prep even the most basic moves from my opponents has turned the challenge into an arbitrary RNG fest that I don't have any chance of finishing in a timely manner. So dear Atticus, eat my fucking bulldoze move and eat shit. Oh, was Team Starry bullied out of school? Is that your sad backstory? Well, you fucking deserved it. Get out of my sight. I have a third team to train up from scratch, dickhead. Alright, third time's the charm. New team: Florian the Flamigo, Wigton the Wug Trio, Ortiga the Orthworm, Babbo the Primeape, again, Popple the Rabska, and Kebabstore the Titan. Next up on the list is Larry's normal type gym. Annihilate will be extremely useful here as a ghost and fighting type. Luckily, Babbo meets the requirements for evolution, so long as we can level him up once before the gym leader, we'll have what we need. While training up our new team for the perils ahead, we run into an orange Tatsugiri, which doesn't strike me as odd at first since that's one of the normal colors. Is that a shiny Tatsugiri?
Don't they have 3 different colors?
It's shiny.
Yeah, but that one just did the shiny glimmer. But nope, this is apparently the shiny variant of the normally yellow Tatsugiri. In my almost 2 decades of playing Pokemon, I have never found a random full odds shiny outside of Legends Arceus, so this is pretty exciting. An omen of good luck on the horizon for this team, surely. So let's get to that gym test. This one asks us to order a super secret dish from the Medali restaurant. Each gym challenger has a clue on what the dish is, so we'll need to beat all of them to figure out what to order. Finally, a gym test that is just good old-fashioned battling, instead of rolling a giant olive or winning an auction. All these gym trainers have bulky normal types, which should be perfect for Babbo to take down and get that crucial level. Oh, who am I kidding? It's never that simple. Here comes a counter gradient, ending Babbo's life on the cusp of greatness and killing my last chance to get an Annihilate. I need to take a step back and acknowledge something I've been ignoring this entire playthrough. Pokemon Violet is actually pretty tough. Sure, I managed to breeze through the first third of the game due to a level advantage and poor scaling, but now that I'm this far behind, I don't have the option to take it easy anymore. If I don't start taking the game seriously, I'm gonna keep getting wiped and I will never finish this challenge. Larry is up, leading with a Komala. We dig with Wigton, getting a free turn's worth of damage before getting drowsy and switching into Ortiga, who is able to get some nice damage in. We want to preserve Ortiga and its massive physical bulk for later, so Wigton comes back in, ignoring the Sucker Punch, and digging past the Yawn again. After trading hits with the Dunsparce, we swap him out just in case we need a sack on the ace, and Ortiga is able to come back in, tank the hell out of a Hyper Drill, and secure the kill. At this point, Terranormal Staraptor outspeeds my team and is a menace to everything, so something needs to be sacked. Luckily, we don't need Wigton for the rest of the run. In addition to getting a free switch, Gooey drops the Staraptor's speed, putting us exactly in the position we need for Ortiga to outspeed and finish the fight without further casualties. Now we're playing with power. There's no rest for the wicked though, as Nemona immediately challenges us to a battle upon finishing the gym. And that poses a bit of a problem. Our lead against Larry, and therefore our lead against Nemona, was Wigton, who gets sent out in a zombified state. While the most fair thing to do at this juncture would be to hard switch out into something that was still alive, this game has been anything but fair to me. Instead, I let Nemona's Lycanroc slowly kill me while I softly slap it with 3 wet noodles. I get the gooey drops on it, which isn't entirely above board, but I hardly need more things working against me right now. Ortiga and Popple are able to tag team the rest of the fight until we get to Nemona's ace, Quackaball. One point to note is that this generation's starters are actually all incredibly good, which will potentially make Nemona's ace a struggle moving forward. But as long as we have our own powerful starter to counter hers, we should be fine. Oh, shit. With Kushcat dead, Quackaball has some real sweeping potential here. Using Aqua Step, it can easily boost itself into a position where no switch is safe, and my only offensive answer, Rabska, doesn't fare well against its Air Slash. I try to send in Florian to take it out before the speed boosts start happening, but forget that Nemona goes for the Terra here, boosting Aqua Step even further and ensuring that none of my Pokemon can survive long enough, especially without any kill pressure on the pure water type. That is, except for the Goat. The trump card I promised to only use in emergencies. Well, if this is an emergency, I don't know what is. Kebabstore hard switches into save Florian and puts down the Dancing Duck just in time to avoid Calamity. With the Ghost Gym next on the chopping block, we add Dimmadome the Dunsparce and Argyle the Pawniard to the team. Unfortunately, Pawniard's evolution level is absurdly high, so she won't be of much use yet, But fortunately, the Ghost Gym focuses on double battles. I'm in my element, shout out to Trouble Double Drafts, the best doubles draft league run by a content creator named Technovoid. Rhyme leads off with Mimikyu and Bayonet, both of which have access to priority. Ortiga boosts its already incredible physical bulk with Iron Defense, making Bayonet's Sucker Punch fail, while Dimmadome breaks Mimikyu's disguise, allowing Ortiga to finish it off the following turn with an Iron Head. Argyle switches in for Dimmadome, making Bayonet fail at Sucker Punch once again, while Ortiga continues down the Iron Head warpath, taking down the rest of Rhyme's team without issue, netting us our 6th badge. The first one without a death in a while, actually. Feeling confident, we head back out to the desert for a delicious Jimmy John's sub and Dying Dog lore, handily taking out Robo Donphan with Argyle. Also, there's totally just a debug Pokeball left in the middle of this cutscene. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are truly the greatest Pokemon games that haven't been finished yet, and it never stops being hilarious. For some reason, Titan Iron Treads doesn't have a ground type move, despite being a ground type. Man, where have I heard that before? As we go to catch it for ourselves though, it turns out it learned Stomping Tantrum in the 10 seconds it took Miraidon to mug me of my sandwich, leading to an early grave for Argyle. Chat decides to bless me with Iron Treads itself as a replacement, which will surely be an asset to my— never mind, Nemona killed it! Despite having a speed boost, Quackavoll still ends up slower than Iron Treads, meaning I put it in Torrent range right before it used a move I knew it wouldn't kill without Torrent boost. Skill issue, I guess. After slogging through a Simon Says minigame which should have never existed and yet manages to take almost 10 full minutes, we get a shot at Tulip, the Psychic-type gym leader. After struggling through another bout of dialogue in which the game tries to be totes on fleek yo with the kids, we cleave through Tulip's team with a Terra Scarf Rabska. It sure is nice having a type advantage on a boss for once. And on that note, there's just one gym left. Ice type is not particularly hard to hit super effectively, and Ortiga runs away with it once again. This dumb Earthworm has been putting in some serious work. With the last of the gyms down, the Elite Four officially opens up. But like hell I'm doing that now. In terms of threat level, the Fairy base is probably my best bet. Ortiga has proven herself to be a menace, but another Steel type would be nice. It's a good thing I spent all that time putzing around and grinding to 999 Gimme Ghoul coins. Thus enters the golden god of Hollow Knight's skill, Northern Lion.
Turns out that I am actually a golden god of Hollow Knight skill.
Not only is this dude one of the funniest designs in the new generation, he's also extremely good. Steel and Ghost as a type combo is absolutely fantastic, and his move pool access is extremely solid. Good thing I actually get to choose the moves now. Among them is Make It Rain, a 120 base power steel move that hits both opponents and only lowers special attack by 1 stage, making it effectively stronger than Flash Cannon even after its first use. It's really no wonder this thing is dominating competitive right now. And that's not even its greatest asset. Get this. While battling on the water, Goldengo rides a surfboard. I cannot make this shit up. What I can do though is annihilate the Fairy Star Squad. After beating the shit out of the rich Twerp's piano teacher, it's time to get real. Northern Lion has a bit of trouble with the huge power of Azumarill and needs to switch out against the Darkspun to avoid the crunch. Ortiga tanks the hit beautifully, terastallizing and breaks the bread. Northern Lion is easily able to switch back in against the Wigglytuff, healing up with Recover while Wiggly fruitlessly tries to lower our stats, not realizing we're good as gold. With only the Starmobile left, it's too late to call out for Papa. Daddy's boy tries to go for the Misty Surge and Steel Roller combo, but we predict, switching back into our physical wall and totaling the Torque Terror in no time. Maybe if you spent less time practicing piano and more time training, you would have stood a chance. But as it stands, you'll just have to roo-bah. Get it, because the Fairy Squad is called Roo-bah. Look, after how bad my experience was with the last Star Squad, just let me have this, please. All that's left now are the False Dragon Titan and the Fighting Star Squad. And I've heard horror stories about the Fighting Squad, so it looks like Casseroya Lake is our next destination. That being said, I'd like to try something potentially risky, but very funny. You see, spoiler alert, but the False Dragon Titan is a Tatsugiri that jumps into a Dondozo's mouth during the Titan fight. Tatsugiri's ability, Commander, states that if a Tatsugiri jumps into an allied Dondozo's mouth, the Dondozo gets a double Omni boost to all of its stats. While I have no idea if this Titan fight functions in the same way, it's worth considering that it might. Enter Mirror Herb, a new held item introduced in Gen 9 that raises the holder stats to match an opposing Pokemon's boosts. If this works, we could grab Dondozo's double boost for ourselves and turn the battle into a cakewalk with Northern Lion's Thunderbolt. There's just one tiny issue though. Dondozo apparently has knockoff, and if the stat boost doesn't actually happen in this case, the Mirror Herb doesn't get consumed, and Northern Lion could realistically be wrecked by the boosted Dark-type move. But there's no content without some risks, so we head out to buy the Mirror Herb and see if this absurdly specific prep pans out. Long story short, nope. Since Tatsugiri jumps into Dondozo's mouth in a scripted cutscene rather than an actual battle, Commander doesn't activate, leaving Northern Line in a terrible spot. No big brain play goes unpunished, I guess. I try to cheese out a Shed Tail switch, but the Titan is hitting too hard for me to safely get a Thunderbolt off. Sounds like an emergency situation to me. Sound the kebab store alarm and get me out of here. Once we drive Dondozo off to the Herba Mystica, I quickly get rid of the Mirror Herb before jumping into round 2. We managed to defeat the Titan duo without much trouble, but I'm convinced Cerebi's info on their movesets is just wrong, since we see Dondozo using Water Pulse and Tatsugiri use Dragon Pulse. Either way, with the final Titan down and the last Pop-Elite special in Miraidon stomach, we have full reign over the open world. Much like Arvin's dog has full reign over my heartstrings in this cutscene. I guess Game Freak finally figured out how to make people care about their stories, just unfairly emotionally manipulate us with a dying dog. Worked for Futurama, and it works here. Unfortunately, I can't avoid it any longer. The Fighting Star Squad is the last challenge in our path before the endgame. My team really struggles with the fighting type defensively, which means we'll need to pull out some intense hyper-offense tactics to get through this one unscathed. Eri leads with Toxicroak, who threatens most of our team with a combination of Brick Break and Sucker Punch. As useful as Ortiga has been for the past few bosses, she does absolutely nothing for us here, so we lead with her and immediately set up a Shed Tail to safely get Florian in, who is going to have to hard carry this fight with Bravebird. As expected, Toxicroak goes for the Brick Break upon seeing Ortiga, which isn't powerful enough to break through the sub. With Florian in, the AI sees a resist on the Sucker Punch, allowing us to maintain our sub while Bravebird takes out one Pokemon after the next. The constant recoil on Bravebird means that by the time the Starmobile destroys our sub, Florian is already in the danger zone. In addition, the Starmobile having stamina means that using a physical attacker here is going to be an uphill battle. We swap in a Northern Line, knowing the Starmobile won't go for a high horsepower on the switch, and manage to defeat it with Psychic while barely staying out of crit range. With all the main challenges taken care of, we have one hurdle left for each storyline. For the Titan battles, we need to challenge Arven, for Team Star, we need to fight Cassiopeia, and for the gyms, it's the Elite Four and Nemona. Nemona is definitely the hardest of these, but we don't have to fight her immediately after the Elite Four. Since they're the lowest level challenge at this point and are the last set of teams with a type specialization, they seem like the best choice to tackle first. The Elite Four this time consists of specialists using the ground, steel, flying, and dragon types. Kebab Store could probably just rush through all of these on his own, but you know, emergency protocol and all that. We temporarily drop McGruff and Popple for Olive Garden the Orbaliva and Taipei Tokyo the Tatsugiri, since they'll be a lot more helpful against Rika and Poppy, whose ground and steel types we have limited answers for. After successfully passing the totally rigged interview, we get challenged by Rika. Luckily for me, I'm playing this section of the game late enough that the looping Elite Four music bug has been patched, meaning we don't have to listen to the anxiety-inducing 5-second intro play throughout this entire challenge. Seriously, I don't understand how you can release a game in this state, but to be fair, it's the fastest selling game to ever be released by Nintendo, so I guess that's how. Olive Garden easily cleans up Rika's Wish Cache lead and baits in the Camerupt. Removing this thing from the battle as quickly as possible would be ideal, since it's Rika's only Pokemon that Ortiga can't wall out. We swap in for Taipei Tokyo, since a single water move should be able to OHKO it and make the rest of Rika's team a cakewalk. Of course, we double miss the Muddy Water, skill issue, and fall asleep to Yawn. At this point, most hard switches are too risky, and we can't effectively burn sleep turns, so we just pray for the 2-turn sleep and let Tatsugiri bite it when the numbers don't work in our favor, as usual. Kebab Store comes in and finishes off the battle for us because, frankly, I'm sick of losing battles to accuracy rolls. After beating Rika, we realize that we can just open the box and switch at our team members between Elite Four battles, which is extremely broken, but I'm also broken, and you don't see me going on about it, so shut up. We swap Taipei for Dimmadome and lead with Ortiga going into Poppy's Caparaja. After Levitate Bronzong comes in, we decide to hard switch into Olive Garden rather than using Shed Tail to preserve Ortiga's health for later, and win the Stall War with a combination of Leech Seed, Growth, and Mega Drain. Seed Sower lets Arboliva heal more every turn from grassy terrain, while Bronzong's Levitate denies it the healing, allowing us to win the Stall War despite the inferior matchup. Northern Lion comes into tank and kill the Corviknight and Magnezone, but not before Magnezone sets up a light screen for Poppy's ace, Tinkaton. Thankfully, Tinkaton's attack stat is absolute garbage, allowing Northern Lion to easily tank its double Terra boosted 160 base power Gigaton Hammer while we chip away with Shadow Ball and win the fight. Next up is Larry, who is such a great character that Game Freak decided we should fight him twice. This time he uses flying types, and as much as I would have enjoyed a nail-biting battle against the game's best character, my team struggles pretty significantly with this team. Rather than wipe for the third time in this challenge, I just let Kebab Store roll through him. Frankly, Larry is overworked as is, and he would probably appreciate the quick loss. Hassel would also be really easy to sweep with Kebab Store, but I try and maintain an element of competitive integrity and use a combination of Ortiga, Dimmadome, Florian, and Northern Lion to take him out without any major scares. The last challenge here is Gita, who, despite using her team extremely badly, like seriously, don't anchor with Glamora, poses a genuine threat. Mainly because of King Gambit. Gita leads with a Spathra, which is fast enough to harshly lower Northern Lion's special defense before getting killed. I force switch on the EQ prediction into Florian so we can restore the Spadef drop, but I misjudge Avalog's bulk and sloppily let Florian die to an avalanche. The game then decides that things are going too well and randomly starts raining as soon as Veluza switches in, boosting its liquidation damage significantly. I swear this shit is rigged. Next up is King Gambit, which is probably the biggest threat in the entire E4 challenge. With 3 of its teammates dead, Supreme Overlord gives King Gambit a 30% boost to its attacks, essentially a free life orb without the recoil. Despite its low speed stat, King Gambit is bulky enough to tear a hole through my team with the boosts, so we glare with Dimmadome and pray for the para-hacks, which ends up not panning out. An unfortunate loss, but one that gives us a clean switch into Ortiga, who is able to take it out thanks to top tier physical bulk and a full para. Gita's last 2 Pokemon are hardly a threat, allowing Ortiga to finish up the sweep and ending our Elite Four run with 3 deaths total. After trying and failing to teach Nemona the importance of consent, we leave to finish off the rest of the final battles before taking her on. Nemona is definitely the most likely to cause a death at this point, so I'd like to maintain as much of the team as possible before taking her on. First up, we've got Cassiopeia at the school, or should I say, Clive. In an insane turn of events that nobody could have seen coming, Clive turns out to be Director Clavel, who was also the leader of Team Star. This definitely tracks, and I see no possible proof to the contrary, so we take him on. Overall, his team is a pushover until we reach his ace, which is the final form of the Unchosen starter. In this case, Skeledirge. Like the other 2 starters, Skeledirge is an incredible Pokemon with insane sweeping potential. Its signature move, Torch Song, is an 80 base power move which raises special attack, allowing this thing to quickly become an unstoppable force while I try to break through its bulk. After a Fire Terra, Skeledirge's Torch Song becomes even more dangerous, so we hard switch Dragapulton to tank the first Torch Song and then die to Shadow Ball, giving Kebabstore a safe switch in to finish it off with Liquidation. In yet another incredible twist, it turns out Clavel was full of shit, and the actual Team Star boss was Penny. M. Night Shyamalan had better watch out, because Game Freak is coming after his job. Penny's team is full of evolutions, which does give her significant type coverage, but also means that nothing on her team stands out as a significant threat. This would have been an easy fight to Deathless, but I spend so much of the fight looking at her team information in another tab that I don't even realize Flareon comes in against my Gardevoir. Thinking I'm up against Sylveon because that's what I'm looking at on my team info tab, I assume I can safely set up on it, only to get ass blasted by a Flare Blitz I literally do not see coming. New Nuzlocke challenge should be beat the game with your eyes closed, because at this point I might as well have been. The rest of the fight goes without a hitch, so we skip through Team Star Anti-Establishment PSA and make our way over to Arvin in an attempt to beat the daddy issues out of him. As it turns out, Professor Turo needs us to come visit him in the crater. Arvin says it's dangerous and wants to test our skills out first. His team isn't a pushover, but compared to the fire and flames we've been through up until now, it's relatively painless. After punching his dog back into its catatonic state, Arvin says we shouldn't head to the crater until we arbitrarily finish the rest of the storylines, which means that she is next. Nemona is waiting for us in Mesagoza, and is no doubt the toughest fight so far. She leads with Lycanroc into Ortiga, essentially acting as a suicide lead and setting up stealth rocks, which will be a serious problem without a spinner. McGruff is able to hard switch on Palmot's close combat, but between the rocks, chip, and double shock, he only barely has enough HP to live the ice punch and take it down. Trying to preserve the dog for the rest of the game, we swap into Ortiga, which handily resists to Dunsparce's entire moveset. Earth Eater lets us restore from the rock chip as Nemona brings in her own Earthworm, who wins the 1v1 thanks to Body Press. Ortiga isn't super valuable in this fight anymore, so we sacrifice the HP to switch Northern Line in with a sub, which stays up thanks to its Body Press immunity. Earthworm is just barely bulky enough to survive the Shadow Ball and takes down her sub, but Goodra is in next and can't do much besides spam Muddy Water, giving Northern Line a chance to heal up with Recover. Last up is the godless Quackavall, who has been a thorn in my side for like half of this playthrough. Northern Line moves first and isn't quite able to one-shot with Thunderbolt, putting it back in Torrent range. Anyone getting deja vu here? Northern Line thankfully survives the Aqua Step rebuttal by the skin of his teeth, and I switch into Olive Garden, which in hindsight was a huge mistake. With no chance to outspeed or survive, the only thing Olive Garden manages to do is set up grassy terrain with Seed Sower and start healing Quackavall. I wish I could pretend this was an intended sack to get Quackavall out of Torrent range, but the healing doesn't even take it out of range, so I just need to accept the bad player L on this one. Between rocks on my side and a terastallized Quackavole being at +2 speed and torrent range, it's not just going to take a hero, but a miracle to win this fight. Kebab Store comes in and gets put into Aqua Step crit range by the rocks. After Quackavole's grassy terrain heals, even a Terra Ice Spinner at a significant level advantage only has a 98% chance to kill. We thankfully avoid the 1 in 24 crit and pray for anything but the Mineral and Ice Spinner, and breathe a sigh of relief as the duck returns to its throne in hell. I'm no pro, and I've made my fair share of mistakes on this run, but goddamn, this game can go hard sometimes. With an entire box worth of dead Pokemon, we grab our supposed friends and head to the crater with the final 6 of the run. Popple the Rabsca, McGruff the Houndstone, Snowguy the Baxcalibur, and the absolute legends Ortiga, Northern Lion, and Kebab Store. New Pokemon additions have been turned off, so the only things left in the box are an underleveled Mousehold and Komala, so if these 6 go down, the run is over. Now I can't believe I'm saying this, but this final section of the game is genuinely amazing. Pokemon is not usually known for its stories, but The Way Home is a serious shakeup to the formula that I think even topples Black and White in its finale. So if you have somehow managed to avoid spoilers of the SV endgame up until now and are working through the game yourself, this might actually be a good place to turn off the video and finish your own playthrough. As the team jumps into the crater while Miraidon is way over its OSHA-mandated weight limit, we end up in Area 0, a genuinely spooky zone where things just feel off. The harsh, unchanging lighting, the giant crystals growing all over the local flora, the abandoned buildings, all accompanied by the choral and synth arrangement. It's extremely well done, even with the obvious lack of polish. It just makes me wonder how amazing this game could have been if it had been given proper time in the oven. Miraidon is experiencing some severe PTSD and refuses to come out of its Pokeball, so we end up circling our way down the crater, led on by Professor Turo's voice. Along the way, we come in contact with another Iron Shreds, as well as a freaky robot Delibird, the Water and Ice type Iron Bundle. This thing is scary, and not just because it looks like it's about to kill somebody, but because it actually can. All of these Paradox Pokemon have a minimum of 570 BST, putting them in Ultra Beast threat range, with some, like Iron Bundle, being so threatening they've been banned to Ubers on Smogon. Consider for a moment the statement, Delibird and Ubers, and go get a refill on your anxiety meds. As we head deeper into the crater, Turo's voice glitches the hell out, which is freaky, but more importantly, all but confirms that he's a robot. I've been saying since the professors were first revealed that they were either evil or dead, and by the looks of it, they might actually be both, so I'm feeling pretty proud of my prediction skills right now. As we reach the very pit of the crater, beating back the various robotic nightmares that want us dead, we reach the central research station, and the absolutely coolest and most intense final boss Pokemon has done in, well, potentially ever. The professor, now confirmed to be an AI finishing Turo's work, begs us to shut down the time machine that is spawning all the Paradox Pokemon, knowing full well that his programming will overwrite the personality and force him to challenge us. This fight is amazing. The music is intense, the visuals criminally good in a game this ugly, against a full team of supercharged Mons that you would have no way of knowing anything about on a blind playthrough. It's fantastic. AI Turo leads with Iron Moth, a dual fire and poison type based on Volcarona. As has been a running theme in this playthrough, both of these types are a genuine problem for my team. But we didn't come without a plan. An insanely bad plan that relies heavily on RNG, but look, game, you fucked me until now, let me have this. Ortiga leads, holding a Quick Claw. Ortiga is basically guaranteed to be outsped and one-shot by Iron Moth's Fiery Dance. But Quick Claw gives us a 1 in 5 chance of moving first. And if we actually manage to pull it off, the AI will never realize we have Earth Eater as an ability, sending in Iron Thorns in next, allowing us to instantly delete 2 of Turo's most dangerous Pokemon before the fight even begins. We take the gamble, and it pays off. Quick Claw activates and Moth immediately goes down to an Earthquake. As predicted, Turo sees the ground weakness on Ortiga and goes for Thorns, a Paradox Tyranitar with an Electric and Rock typing. Thorns no doubt goes for the EQ, but it doesn't matter, because Ortiga is the fucking GOAT, getting a second Quick Claw proc and instantly deleting another 4x weak to Groundmon. With 2 of Turo's most dangerous members out of the equation, we have a lot more breathing room. Iron Jugulis is next, a Dark and Flying Hydreigon Paradox. We hard swap Snowguy in to take the neutral Flamethrower hit, activating our Thermal Exchange and boosting Snowguy's attack. Jugulus outspeeds and hits pretty hard with Flash Cannon, but the boosted Icicle Crash wipes it in return, while Citrus Berry takes us out of kill range of another Flash Cannon in case we missed. Iron Hands is up next, an electric and fighting Hariyama variant. We swap into Northern Line without issue thanks to fighting immunity. Hands is extremely bulky, but thanks to leftovers and Thunder Punch's low base power, Northern Line is able to push through, killing it and the follow-up Iron Bundle. Last up is Iron Valiant, a fairy and fighting fusion of Gardevoir and Gallade, which uses booster energy to buff its attack to Life Orb levels going into the fight. Luckily for me, Northern Line has an absolutely amazing type combo and resists all of its moves, allowing us to eat the Spirit Break and end the game with a Make It Rain. The story continues with one last scripted fight between the Miraidons, but the Nuzlocke and the pain is over. I made mistakes, like a lot of mistakes, and I'm not a super experienced Nuzlocker, so these rules were tough on me. Frankly, the entire back half of the game was just me struggling to regain an advantage after a series of unfortunate losses. Overall, the run was messy, incredibly so. But I had a good time, and that's what matters, right? These games really have so much potential to be good, and their brilliance shines through every once in a while, which makes it all the sadder that they were released in this state, and will continue to be released in this state for this foreseeable future since it's clearly a financial win for Game Freak to do so. But as a fan of the series, I can still hope, through the laughter and the tears, that someday we will actually get a game that can live up to the standard they are clearly capable of. I appreciate you sticking with me through this journey, and I hope to see you next time. So let me leave you with just one piece of advice for your adventures in Paldea and beyond. Never let your Pokemon choose their own movesets.